Millennials and Gen Z are now the dominant force in the housing market. Together, they represent over half of all potential homebuyers in the United States. But here's the catch: the housing market wasn't built for them. It was built for a different economy, a different lifestyle, and frankly, a different generation. Starter homes are nearly extinct. Prices have skyrocketed past income growth. And even when younger buyers do everything right, save money, build credit, get pre-approved, many still feel like the system is stacked against them. But this isn't just about rising costs. It's about a deeper disconnect between what younger generations want from homeownership and what the market is currently offering. And unless that gap closes, we may be heading toward a generational standoff that reshapes the entire housing economy. Let's begin with some numbers. In 1985, the average U.S. home price was about 3 times the median household income. Today, it's over 6 times income in many cities. In markets like Los Angeles or Austin, that ratio is even more extreme. Add in rising student debt, stagnant wages, and record inflation. And it's no wonder many millennials and Gen Zers feel like buying a home is slipping further out of reach. And it's not just prices, it's the lack of inventory. In 2012, over 50% of new homes sold were priced under $300,000. By 2023, that number dropped to just 13%. The starter home as we knew it? It's disappearing. But affordability is just the beginning of the story. Contrary to what some might think, millennials and Gen Z do want to buy homes. But they're not chasing the traditional white picket fence ideal. What they want looks different. They want homes that are smaller and easier to maintain, located in walkable, amenity-rich neighborhoods. Designed with sustainability in mind, think energy-efficient windows, solar panels, and EV charging. Tech-ready, with smart locks, thermostats, and high-speed internet baked in. They also want flexibility. With more remote and hybrid work, buyers are no longer tied to commuting hubs. A home that fits their lifestyle, not just their job, is the new priority. And maybe most notably, they're less interested in homes as status symbols, and more interested in homes as tools for stability, freedom, and autonomy. That's a shift in psychology, and it's one the industry hasn't caught up with. So why is there still a mismatch? First, builders follow profit. Large homes offer better margins. Developers aren't incentivized to build small, affordable homes when luxury models bring in more revenue per square foot. Second, zoning laws in many U.S. cities limit the types of housing that can be built. Duplexes, townhomes, and accessory dwelling units, often called missing middle housing, are still not permitted or heavily restricted in many suburban neighborhoods. These policies were written for an era of rapid suburban growth. But they've become a barrier to the kinds of housing younger generations are asking for. There's also the mortgage system itself. The standard 30-year fixed-rate mortgage was designed in the 1930s to encourage long-term stability. But today, many young buyers want options with more mobility, shorter terms, or shared equity. In short, the entire system, from financing to zoning to supply, is optimized for a different buyer. But there's something else going on, and it's psychological. Millennials and Gen Z are not just financially cautious. They're behaviorally wired differently when it comes to big life decisions. Why? Because they've already lived through 2 major economic crises: the Great Recession and the COVID-19 pandemic. That kind of economic instability leaves an imprint. Research shows that younger generations exhibit higher levels of present bias, a tendency to favor short-term outcomes over long-term planning, especially when future gains seem uncertain. Owning a home used to be framed as a guaranteed step toward wealth, but younger generations are more skeptical. They've seen markets crash, watched friends become house poor, and are less willing to trade flexibility for forced equity. They also delay traditional milestones like marriage and children. And when you delay those life phases, you also delay home ownership because the urgency just isn't there. Then there's the cultural shift. They grew up in a subscription economy. Renting, sharing, borrowing, it's second nature. To many, locking into a 30-year mortgage feels more like a trap than a triumph. So what would it take for the market to meet these buyers where they are? A few things. 1. Innovation in financing. Shared equity models, fractional ownership, and co-buying platforms are beginning to pop up. Some startups are even testing rent-to-own hybrids that let buyers build equity over time without a massive down payment. 2. Zoning reform. Cities like Minneapolis and states like California are beginning to revise zoning codes to allow more density and housing diversity. If that trend continues, we could see a rise in small format, multi-unit homes that better match what young buyers want and can afford. 3. New construction models. Modular homes, factory-built components, and vertical urban developments could lower costs and reduce build times if they scale. 4. A cultural shift in how we define ownership. We may see more people co-owning homes, investing in housing cooperatives, or choosing long-term renting in purpose-built rental communities that offer the same stability without the long-term risk. And all of these shifts are already underway. They're just not mainstream yet. Here's the bottom line. Millennials and Gen Z aren't walking away from housing. They're walking away from a system that wasn't designed for the world they live in. They want homes. But they want them to be more affordable, more adaptable, more ethical, and more aligned with how they live, work, and build community today. And unless the industry listens, adapts, and evolves, we may see these generations start to redefine housing on their own terms. Because the future of housing won't just be about square footage and price per foot. It'll be about values, mobility, sustainability, and choice. This is the Center for Housing IQ. Subscribe for journalist-produced, data-backed content, because better information leads to better decisions.